Welcome back to Sneaker Impact News. My special guest today is Ludovica Martella, aka Sustainably Lu. Welcome, Lu. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Bryan. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I want to read a quick bio about my friend Lu, who I met a couple of weeks ago at a climate event called Psychedelics for Climate Action, hosted by our friend Marissa Feinberg. Ludovica Martella is an integrative somatic fitness coach and climate justice advocate committed to empowering individuals to achieve holistic wellness through a harmonious mind-body connection. With a background in climate justice, Ludovica's mission is to support individuals in calming their nervous system and achieving holistic wellness, emphasizing the connection between body, mind, spirit, and the earth. So I love that, and I want to learn all about that today, Ludovica. But first, we talked about off air setting an intention for this podcast before we get started. So you can go ahead with your intention, and then I will give you mine.
I love this, by the way. I think every podcast should start with these intentions. My intention for today is to connect the dots between climate action and energy healing, also known as somatic healing. So between how we manage our own energetic system and how that impacts the earth and vice versa.
Amazing. We have never talked about that on Sneaker Impact News, so I think we've talked about climate justice. It's such an important topic, and so is the body and healing it and the mind-body-soul connection with the earth. It's so important. So you led a meditation, a somatic activation at the event where I met you, and it was very powerful. So thank you for your intention. Mine is a pretty classic one, to raise awareness and educate about important topics. Amazing. And share inspiring conversations from local leaders. So that's what you are. And more. So let's get to know you today. As I told everyone, I met you a couple of weeks ago at a Psycha climate awareness event at the Hub.
Yes, the Hub for Future Cities.
Climate and Innovation Technologies. It's got a long name, but
yes.
Tony Cho is the founder. It's right down the street from Sneaker Impact. You were a speaker there.
Yes.
As I was with Alan, my partner from Miami Mushroom Fest. I also represented Sneaker Impact. And today, even the Miami Herald was here from that event. So it just shows how, and you had met the reporter that was there that day. She came to follow up and learn more about Sneaker Impact today.
I love that.
And so did you. So it just shows how, and that was like a month and a half ago. So the community is local, but it's also, the Miami Herald is pretty big. They're curious, what's going on, how, so we're telling the story, and in today's podcast, I want to learn all about why you are known as Sustainably Lu and your background. So you have a really interesting background. We were talking about it off camera, and I want to get started with, even before, what you're currently offering the world in terms of your knowledge and talents. Let's talk about where you were born, because I find that a very interesting part of who you are too. So where were you born, and what were you like as a little girl?
So I was born in Rome, Italy. I was born in the suburbs of Rome. So
Okay.
Not in the historic city center that most people associate Rome with.
I've been there one time, yeah.
Exactly.
And I went to the Parthenon, I believe, and the Colosseum, and
amazing.
Is that where the steps are to the? Anyways, this was many years ago.
Yeah, the Spanish steps.
What do they call it again? Anyways,
Piazza di Spagna.
Yes, where they throw the coins in.
Oh, okay. Well, that would
Presi?
be Fontana di Trevi, Trevi Fountain. That's
Trevi Fountain.
Trevi
Fountain, yes. So,
yeah.
But this is where you're born, in the suburbs. So what was that like growing up in Rome?
To be honest, that growing up in the area where I lived and my family still lives was pretty much growing up in just like a small town, because the suburbs of Rome really resembles like a small town kind of living.
Rural? More rural than
More
urban?
rural. Absolutely.
Because you live in Miami now, so Miami would be very urbanized.
Yes, that's
But
correct.
I've been to Greece recently. I've been to Albania for music festivals deep in the middle of Albania,
Awesome.
and so I know kind of what the buildings look like in, Greece. Is it kind of like that? Is it more like everything's made out of stone and it's like very historic?
So
Really good pizza?
Good pizza, yes, always. That's a must
guessing.
for me. It's,
You're the best.
Yeah, I love pizza. Also, my mother's lineage is from Naples, and
wow.
that's where,
Sure.
they invented pizza. So I feel it's like in my bloodline,
Wow.
pretty much.
Okay.
But yeah, honestly, in the area where I grew up, the buildings are not very historic. They're very simple. And so...
But European versus American, would you say?
Absolutely, yeah.
More historic.
Yeah, for sure.
Older.
Yes, they're
That's so
just
cool.
like not made out of stones, like the beautiful little towns in Greece.
Oh, okay, in Italy, like in like Ponte Vecchio or somewhere, or like
That's
Florence,
right.
or
Yeah.
but still a beautiful area, good wine, I'm assuming.
Yes, obviously that's a staple. But you know, growing up in a
But tell us, yeah,
small,
about your family.
yeah,
Yeah, like
well,
brothers and sisters. What?
I have an older sister.
Uh-huh.
All of my family lives still in Italy right now. I was actually brought to the US by my father when I was 13. So
Okay.
my family did live with me in the
Mm-hmm.
US for quite a long time. And then they all eventually moved back to Italy, and I decided to stay here to continue my education in sustainability. At the time, I was also working as a journalist on
Okay.
these topics. That was the beginning of my career. And I just thought this was the best choice for me at the time. But
So New York City is where you first lived when you moved to the U.S.?
That's correct, yes. I'm
Wow.
definitely a New Yorker at heart.
Okay.
They say that you're a New Yorker after 7 years, and I lived there for 15.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
Whoa. So the
But
Big Apple is a big part of your heart.
it is.
You know the city well.
I really definitely do. And, you know, they always say with New York, you have a love-hate relationship, and I can definitely testify to that. But I'm super grateful for everything that the city has gave me, all of the opportunities. I think that the energy there is definitely like something that is special. But I will say it definitely wrecked my nervous system, and that's also why I got into somatic healing. It's part of that. So it's part
Sure,
of my
with all the
story.
honking horns and stuff. And
Yeah, and living through the pandemic.
I've heard that the hardest part of living in the city sometimes is the noise, because like even
Yeah.
Miami's even a noisy city. Like I was last
sure.
week in the mountains of Guatemala, and it was so different. There was no noises, and the honking, people are honking to say hi when we were running on the roads, but like the honks were friendly. But
Yeah.
there was no, it wasn't a mega city. Like 5,000 people live there in this mountain town I was staying in. But like Miami is 1 million or whatever. New York's like 8. I'm going to get it wrong, but like 5 million at least. But it's a beautiful city. I've run the marathon there. I've gone there 2 or 3
Amazing.
times. I think it's just a magical place. But yeah, I am very interested in nervous system healing because I have nervous system dysfunction as a runner and as just someone middle-aged. And I've been recently getting a lot of therapies, from stem cells to even like injections for cortisone tomorrow into herniated disc. But like part of it is from nervous system dysfunction because of inflammation or just hypertension from living in a stressful type of environment. And I think we all living in cities need to manage that stress. So your healing and activation at the class I took or went to, the speech, what we're calling it, conference on on psychedelics and climate action, which was so powerful. Shout out to Psycha. You did an activation there that was so calming. So I would hope we can do one today when you're ready. But first,
Absolutely.
I want to learn a little bit more about like when did you realize in your life that you wanted to be into climate justice? Like let's talk about climate justice first, because healing is also a big part of your life and energy. But climate justice, when did that did that start? Did you want to be something else when you were younger, or did you, as a teenager, did you have a turning point? Was there any major reasons, family influence? Why did you take this career path?
So I've always been a very sensitive kid. So I definitely, I refer to myself as a highly sensitive person, and I'm also very visual. And I remember when I was really young, during dinner, my family always used to watch the news during dinner. They would always go on at 8 p.m. And that's usually when Italians normally eat dinner.
A late dinner but that's classic.
Yes. And I remember seeing images from the North Pole, and I remember seeing like this white bear, this polar bear, struggling on a little tiny piece of ice, and it was like so
From the melting.
skinning.
Yeah.
And I also remember seeing, unfortunately, just like the hunting of these bears for their furs, as well as I guess the specific name for them is like the seahorses, but like they have like a fur when they're
Sea
babies.
lions? No.
I think so.
Otters or seals?
Seals.
Seals.
But they're like Arctic seals, and when they're babies, they have this like white fur. Then they end up like losing it.
Sure.
And so they were showing like also not only the climatic impact of, global warming, but also the fact that despite
Exploitation,
that,
yeah.
there
They're
was this
hunting.
additional, exactly, like exploitation
Yeah.
for furs
That's terrible.
and
Yeah,
whatever.
sure.
And so it was like a very visual piece. I don't know why, I understand, I guess, the reason why, but I always noticed that Italian news are more visual than what I see here in the States. Here they tend to like blur things. In Italy, they still do this. It's like very much like, no, this is
almost like shocking journalism.
Yeah.
Like they're showing you
definitely
straight up like the ice caps are melting and the animals are suffering, and like they're not gonna like versus like
they don't sugarcoat it.
They're not sugarcoating it. No.
And I understand the impact of that, of course, and the reasoning behind it. But as a little kid, I got very much shocked. I still remember visually the impact of that. And I remember thinking, with no doubt, this is what I'm going to do. I want to bring awareness to these issues.
Okay.
And I got very curious about why are the icebergs like melting? Why is the climate getting warmer? And what is the root cause of this? And that's really why I decided, by watching that news piece, that I wanted to be a journalist on these specific topics. And journalism was really like the entryway through climate justice for me, because I used to focus a lot on those topics. Also, the arts as activism for climate justice used to be like a big part of the pieces that I would cover. I studied at Fordham University in New York City, journalism, and I was part of their editorial team. And so I would go around interviewing all of these artists, bringing awareness to climate justice, from global...
So there's a genre of art that's all about climate justice.
Yeah.
'Cause like I'm a little bit aware of it. I took art history in college, but for like 1 year, I was passionate about art when I was younger. Still love art. We got Pedro Amos, our local artist, who did this. But I am curious, so climate action art, is it like political art, or is it more like, what type of art is it? Is it art that's like sometimes like cartoon, or is it more like paintings?
It can honestly
multimedia?
be...
It can be anything?
Yeah, it can be anything.
It could be a sculpture?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Essentially...
It has a message behind it, of course.
Yeah, the message for the artist is essentially like bringing awareness to what is happening at a global scale or local scale. And, I've interviewed like photographers, painters, like multimedia artists, really from different backgrounds.
Cool.
And that was because I was also, and I am still very passionate about art, I was very fascinated about how are these artists bringing awareness about these very important issues happening in their community.
Yeah.
And so that was like my entryway.
Okay.
I ended up working for a documentary for PBS called Great Decisions. And at the time, I was doing video journalism. And I was interviewing these experts. And I noticed that there was, thankfully, a climate change episode within this documentary series. This was like in 2015. And I noticed that all of the people that we were interviewing were people in positions of power, and they were typically, for the majority, men. We maybe interviewed like one woman who happened to be white, and there were no people from the front lines in this documentary series.
More executives or...
Yes, we were talking to really exactly like executives,
industry,
yes,
policymakers.
Exactly.
What was the name of the documentary? Great or Gray?
Great Decisions.
Great Decisions. Okay.
On PBS.
PBS. Okay. Yeah.
And
so you helped produce this.
That's correct. I helped produce this, and in that moment I remember feeling, we were in Washington D.C., even though we were based in New York City. I remember feeling like this big sense of like injustice that resembled kind of like the same feeling that I felt when as a kid, I saw those terrible images from the North Pole and Antarctica, and it really didn't sit well with me that we were talking about how indigenous peoples are being, taken away from their land, how the majority of BIPOC folks suffer mostly from climate change. Yeah, we don't have anyone representing those populations. And so I decided, okay, I want to get into actually policy making and turn my career from journalist to more of a researcher supporting these groups.
Okay.
And that's how I eventually worked for a couple of agencies of the United Nations, because I was in New York City where the headquarters is.
Okay. So like what agencies in particular did you work for?
I worked for the UN Development Program, also known as UNDP, and UN Women. So the focus there was really like working specifically with UN Women on how climate change affects specifically women and, you know, their economic opportunities as well as their mental health and physical health.
Okay.
And with UNDP, I focused mostly on how indigenous peoples are still affected by climate change.
Yeah, sure. It seems like resources are more available in cities, so some of these populations aren't living. And is it also, how are they not getting the same type of services, like in general? Can you like tell us like how women are affected in a different way?
Yeah, so women specifically are culturally normally seen as the providers, the nurturers
caretakers
and caretakers. So usually are the ones that go and fetch the water, the drinking water, and even just like water for the household. When the men, who usually are seen as providers, go and work in cities. So I was focusing mostly on like rural women in South America, in Africa. And we were seeing how specifically women were impacted by climate change, because often they would need to go and fetch water in really dangerous climate conditions. So even where there were like floods, so they were mostly impacted like physically and mentally, and also their families, because then they couldn't go get water.
Just getting water is such a basic human need, but I was just in Guatemala where they carry corn on their head every morning to the market, where they crush it and they mash it and they make the tortillas with it, and that was in Guatemala. But, you know, I definitely saw a dynamic where the women have different roles there than the men, 100%. And it was very different than even Miami, which is very different than the rest of the U.S.
Yeah.
But so the work you're doing, it sounds like, was education and also offering programs to like uplift and inspire them so they basically learn more. Are you educating them? Are you empowering them, it sounds like?
So at the time we were bringing awareness and I was really working to get data so that we could inform policy about how to protect these women. To make sure that, you know, they weren't left behind, because
access to clean water. So trying to get them more also like public water sources, or just so they don't have to walk miles. I mean,
correct.
Because like having access to water it helps with health, right?
Yes,
and longevity,
absolutely.
and
absolutely.
Having a roof over your head, having even electricity or a concrete floor. I mean, there's probably many things that developing communities get left behind in if they don't have.
Yes, and also they would have to walk miles and miles in order to get this water for their family. And often, not only they would find themselves, and they still do find themselves in, you know, really precarious climatic conditions. So, but they would also often get involved into like sex trafficking.
Oh wow! So they're vulnerable to anything from assaults to sex crimes to trafficking to.
So it's really everything.
Because of poverty too, they need. I mean, they're trying to survive, I'm sure.
Yeah, in most cases.
Economic opportunities are scarce.
Yes, in most cases, you know, it was just all of this data that was coming out. And we were actively working with NGOs, like local NGOs in these countries that would like report to us these stories, these case studies. And in most cases, it was really just like a connection. That's when I started noticing all of the connections between climate change, economic empowerment, and even like, mental and physical health for most people, how everything is just like connected, and how certain groups are more affected. For example, women in this case, but then, in my work with UNDP and eventually...
Pregnant women might be even more affected, right? Or someone that's developmentally disabled or an elderly person.
Exactly.
But children are also affected harshly because they need
100%.
certain needs that they might get in a developed country. But so it sounds like this is powerful work that I can see why you took it on as a woman, you know, and seeing the injustice in the world. Knowing your background, you saw the evening news and were, you know, upset to see that happening to our earth. And then, you know, you're right, there's a big disparity between the developed world, like let's even say Europe and the Western world and developed Eastern world and undeveloped countries where they're still, you know, using wood, you know, for cooking. They're still, you know, they don't have the same sanitation or the same waste management, for instance, is a big thing. In the U.S., we have like I hate to use the word first world, but first world versus second or third world sanitation, where in some countries they just dump the trash like in a gorge and it eventually gets washed into the ocean. I've seen it firsthand in Guatemala. And that's because they don't have as organized of a landfill system as we have. But the U.S. has a worse waste problem, I think, than the rest of the world because we consume more. We consume about 20 to 25% of global resources, and we make up 4.5% of the world's population. So that's a recent statistic.
Most countries also
We
send
take up
their
5 times.
trash to this, like,
Some countries send trash to other countries. Yeah, even the U.S. has done that. Yeah, we at Sneaker Impact, we are very against trash ever leaving. We do not. We divert trash from landfill. We divert footwear to reuse. But basically, we do not let anything get shipped overseas that's not reusable. So that's how we don't let trash get shipped overseas. Only usable footwear. Everything else gets grinded here. But it's so important that you have ethics because otherwise, if you don't have ethics, you know, a company will just do whatever they want. You know what I mean? You have to have global ethics that we're one world. There's no planet B is what Sneaker Impact, we say a lot. There's no planet B, and I'm sure you can get behind that. Is there more you want to speak about climate justice? Because I also want to learn about somatic healing and about how did you, in New York City, what triggered you to get into somatic healing and that connection?
So during my experience at the UN, I realized that I really wanted to work directly with local communities. And so I, at the time, I had finished up a master's in climate governance, and there was like a postmaster certificate of just 1 year in sustainable local practices, and there was a program that was led by an indigenous professor. Okay. So I decided to like take that, and I started learning about, you know, indigenous ecologies, really, you know, local-based action on how you can make an impact from the local level, which then can have a domino effect on a larger scale. And I started working with the Mohawk tribe in upstate New York. Their tribe also expands in Canada, in what is known as Canada. And I started working in supporting a woman-led project, bringing attention to how these major companies were actually polluting the Mohawk reservation on the U.S. side. And so their people were, and unfortunately are still suffering from all of these types of like cancer and mental illnesses because their water and their land has been, you know, polluted for so long. And so these women, it was called the Three Sisters Project. These women were bringing awareness to that. And myself, since I had a background in journalism and research, essentially, I was there to help them bring attention about these issues, specifically to the local leaders. And that's really where I started connecting all of the dots also with somatic healing work, because a lot of these people were relying on, you know, things to like numb their pain, whether it was physical or mental. And I started realizing, okay, what are simple ways that actually can support them on their day-to-day life? And I started learning about meditation, about breath work. Somatic means of the body. So, you know, whether it's breath work
Does that go back to Latin, I think? Soma, does that mean body? We'll have to look that one up. I should know it too because I studied Latin.
From Italy,
right?
But
I think Soma means... Because there's a Latin connection, because I studied Latin, and I remember that somatic, I've heard the word, but somatic means the body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So somatic.
Yeah, of the body.
Of the body.
And so essentially every technique from breath work to EFT tapping. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, which is rooted also in Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and specific somatic movements can alleviate these mental and physical issues that people have.
Okay.
And they're usually like really quick techniques that people can do on their own, so they are also affordable. And I became so fascinated by this, and so I started studying this with Buddhist monk. I started my journey with the meditation and learning about mindfulness, and that brought me into like learning these tangible ways where I could, yes, of course, support as a reporter and do my best, and also use honestly like my white privilege to support these communities, and also support those who were open to sit in meditation, do breathwork exercises, find ways to calm their nervous system, because once your nervous system is calm, you can support yourself and also support your community. So it's really a ripple effect. And
so what's like a symptom of a uncalm nervous system? Would it be someone who
it can be anything from, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, even fainting. It really changes from person to person.
Fatigue, but just also probably
Yes.
not feeling good.
Yes, and usually,
Nervous system.
you know,
Stress affects it a lot. Sometimes it's displayed through your behavior, but I'm sure sometimes it's hidden. Because I think a lot of people have nervous system issues because we live in a very like fast society in general, unless you don't. But I think most people you drive your car, and cars are going very fast. The news, everything online, social media, it's all meant to be very fast. Your attention span in the 80s, it was very different in 90s than it is 20 or 30 years ago. It was very different before everyone has a phone in their hand now, and you see it when you go out, everyone's always looking at their phone.
And they almost like bump into you.
Like I was just in Guatemala even, and I was at like a gas station, and it was all Guatemalans, and they were young men, 20 to 40 and 20 to 50, and they were all sitting around eating, but while they're eating, they were all just looking at the phone.
Because we're also,
you're looking for stimulation.
Exactly, ways to distract yourself also from
entertainment.
anything. Yeah, exactly. And I think, somatic healing and mindfulness is really about like sitting with what is present without trying to like numb your feelings, but actually like sitting with them, accepting them, not gaslighting yourself, of course, but just like
acknowledging them.
Yes, acknowledging them,
Surrendering
bringing
to them.
awareness, and then being able to like clear them after you have sat with them, being able to like clear them literally like from your body, because your body keeps the score. That's also the name of a famous book from a former U.S. Veteran.
What, in a nutshell, tell us what that means. The body keeps the score.
That means that everything is made out of energy, right? And if emotions are not processed well when we have like a traumatic experience, they tend to get stored into tissue. So
like a memory.
Exactly.
I've heard of that, and even buildings can hold memories, some people think.
Yes, I'm interested in that.
Space.
Actually.
I've heard some podcasters. It's this totally random thing off the side top, but it could just be love from a family or a person full of love in that house that treated it with so much love. It could be pain from a crime.
Yeah.
Spaces and people can hold trauma.
Absolutely.
And they can also hold love.
Yes.
We're vessels.
Yes, exactly.
That's what you mean with soma. I mean, it's the Greeks and the Latins, I'm sure they knew, like, the body is a container, in a sense. We're not going to get all, religious and political on the podcast because everyone has a different belief. And I studied Buddhism when I was younger in Thailand. I read the teachings of Buddha, so I found it to be very different than my being raised in a Christian upbringing in Wisconsin. So, going to, church every Sunday.
Yeah.
Instead, Buddhism was more about connecting with the world, connecting with nature.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting point that you're bringing up, because often people, I've gotten this question. Actually, I have an online community where I essentially like break down and teach all of these somatic healing practices. And I have a young lady who just finished Ramadan, and her first Ramadan, because she just converted, and she was asking me before joining, is this like a religious practice? And my simple answer is no, because working with your own body is something universal. And even though the origins of mindfulness can be tracked down to like Buddhism is not even a religion, actually.
Okay.
It's a way of life.
A way of life, yeah.
And
That's what I was going to say too, yeah.
Exactly. And so these are things that these indigenous elders and people in the community practice, but also they can be practiced in every religion.
Sure.
And it was very interesting to see that each culture has kind of like their own version.
Yeah.
And so it's really a universal language.
Well, like the teachings of Buddha, a lot are probably about also forgiveness, similar to, and just letting go of like hate and of,
Yeah, absolutely.
being at peace instead of like holding all this, like sometimes we hold a lot of emotions in our body, like you said. So
Exactly.
I think your classes, I think I need to go to take a class, because I've been through a lot, but I also feel like I'm grateful. Like my cats ground me, my garden grounds me, peace, the earth grounds
That's
me,
right.
but also my family grounds me when I talk to my mom and dad, and when I talk to someone who cares about me. Or if you just also think about gratitude, I heard it's the number one way to take care of anxiety is if you think of gratitude.
It raises your vibration. So we all have because we're all made out of energy. We all have essentially like a magnetic field around us.
Sure.
And which in the spiritual lingo is considered your aura, right?
Okay.
But really, like, you can see this also, it comes down to science.
Sure, atoms bouncing around and electrons.
Exactly. And that's really the principle
Emotion, too.
of energetic healing.
Okay.
And so that is very interesting what you brought up, because we are part of nature ourselves. And so it is shown that if you connect with nature, your nervous system comes down.
Sure, when you go for a walk in the forest, studies show just walking in a garden or a forest.
Exactly.
Or an animal, like my cats, when they lay on me, it helps so much with inflammation and with also anxiety and with 100%. Stress and heartache, anything, even, yeah.
Exactly, and if you
Grounding.
go back to gratitude, like
and,
listing 3 things, a minimum of 3 things that you're like grateful for every morning, it is scientifically shown that it raises your vibration.
Wow.
Meaning that your energetic field essentially gets like a higher vibration, so the electrons are moving faster, and it brings in this piece of like joy, of relaxation. Your brain starts to release like dopamine and serotonin, which are chemicals that are responsible for
just
happiness
from being
and
grateful,
wellness.
just from thinking about it,
Because
being mindful about
grounds
gratitude.
you into the present moment, which is also really the core of mindfulness.
Okay. So what are 3 things you lately have been grateful for?
I love that question. I will say I am grateful for my family, even though they are on the other side of the ocean, which can be hard sometimes. They have really been showing up for me. I'm grateful for my dog. I rescued him here from the Miami-Dade shelter.
That's amazing.
And he has special needs. He has only one eye. And
that's so sweet.
despite, all of the trauma that he's been going through, he's so loving. I'm so happy to have him with me.
Like a companion.
Yes.
He's more than he's family. I mean, pets are so special.
Really
they're
are.
our soul companions. It's like they call it the cat distribution system. They're the same thing for dogs. I think like he chose you in the sense that you chose him as well too. But it was a karmic alignment.
Yeah.
And then your third thing. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Lastly, I would say, and it's okay. I am grateful for the ability to do this work, to connect the dots, to even be on this podcast, to connect the dots between, how can we take care of ourselves, of our community, and of the earth, because it comes back to this topic of energetic field.
Yeah.
Once we are aligned and are able to not attach to our emotions and clear our body of what is keeping us stuck from taking like action, which is like collective action and supporting really like the regeneration of the earth, that sends out a frequency to the earth of healing.
So we need to also be healthy in our bodies to create a healthy earth. We can't just create a healthy earth and be living a toxic, I'm sorry, but there are some, there's out there, like that have world leaders that, they talk about this stuff, but they don't actually, it's important. I think the key is there's a sickness in our planet that's also within us. It's affecting us physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually.
Yeah.
And it's something we're stuck sometimes. A lot of people are stuck. It's not just like, I think every family has mental health illness. Every single family in the world. My family certainly does. But my dad's a mental health counselor, and he told me it affects every single family in the world. Every single person in the world is affected by mental health because they know someone or know someone who's affected. We can all say that. I know many people that have struggled, and I've struggled. So, and I've also struggled physically. Like, I'm grateful just to be able to walk lately. But I've been running too, but I couldn't run for like a whole year, and I was a former professional runner. So now I'm just grateful to walk because I have had severe nerve pain in my legs. So just being able to walk, but like also being able to breathe, feeling like I do have a body that I can help, in the sense that, someday I'll be 90. I'm not 90 yet. But even when I'm 90, I want to still be able to help. You know what I mean? And like,
absolutely.
I love the garden, but I would also say I'm just grateful to just be healthy because I'm fairly healthy, even though I have this lumbar pain, spine issue that I'm getting injections tomorrow for. And I've had many injections in the last year. I've been going through a lot of pain, nerve pain, all types of pain. And, but I'm grateful that I am overall a very healthy person. Like I choose healthy foods. When I travel, I eat, like when I was in Guatemala, I was eating with all the local Guatemalan. My friend introduced me to his girlfriend and girlfriend's mom, and like we ate at their home, and they had a very traditional setting. But also just, I don't eat fast food. And like, it's not just about, but it's about choices you make, supporting the earth or not supporting the earth. And you can make that choice in every single meal and almost every single purchase of whether you're supporting a healthy earth or just, and you don't want to say good or bad because that's a value judgment, I think, because everyone has a different opinion on what's good or bad. But I think the earth is a living organism. Absolutely. There's no way you can't say the earth. The reason why is because it's like thousands of organisms and plants, billions actually, because there's like millions and billions of fungi species alone. The earth wouldn't exist as it is without fungi.
That's
the forests wouldn't be able to recycle the wood. Many processes wouldn't take place. Let's talk about the trees. Let's talk about the plants, the herbs, the bees, everything that's connected. Dragonflies that eat X amount of mosquitoes an hour, I was reading. And they only live for 4 to 6 weeks. Did you know dragonflies? They only live for 4 to 6 weeks, but they're beautiful. Yeah. My cats jump in the air and try to catch them.
Oh.
Celeste, she jumps and tries to get the dragon. She gets them once in a while. She's a dragonfly ninja. She jumps up and she gets them. Then they're swooping through the yard. But in my back garden. But dragonflies are incredible, and so are many things, from bats to bees, to spiders, to snakes, everything, even snakes.
Yes, absolutely.
And cats and every single dogs, everything is important in the world, and we're all one giant organism. And if the organism is sick, it is sick. And absolutely. The government currently isn't acknowledging it. We're not going to get into politics because we love both sides. And I'm actually a centralist. I bring people together. I'm not one party or the other. And I can tell you're the same way. We just want to be able to educate. Like that's certainly a right, it's our freedom of speech. So you can educate all you want, and it's currently a tough climate, in the sense that the earth it's at a critical point right now. It's at a critical point with all these fires going on. We just had fires in Miami the other day. We had fires in LA, Hawaii, and other parts of the world, like the Amazon parts of it are always on fire, and we're losing, I think per minute it's like 5 acres of Amazon or something per minute. It's like huge amount of deforestation, and like this Brazil is protecting, Colombia is protecting. I read the other day Colombia is protecting a big portion of this river system where these native tribe lives that have never been contacted, and they protected the land to protect their habit, to protect their home. And it's this river system it's called Putumayo, I believe, and it's in Colombia, and it's like a snaking river. Super beautiful, and it's all jungle, deep jungle, like lowland rainforest. And this is what I used to study, and I've been to Colombia a couple times in the last year, so I'm passionate. I read a lot about environmental topics, and they're protecting certain areas, which is good. Certain governments are, but like the problem is like they need to keep certain areas like off Like this area they keep off limits to like logging. No loggers can go in there. No one can develop it into cattle ranches, which is what they're doing with a lot of the Amazon, converting it to cattle ranches for soy and cattle.
That's right.
So,
and Brazil
and
specifically is the biggest exporter of
Have you been to South
beef.
America? Have you been to? Have you done much?
I have not been
Central?
in the Amazon. It's
Okay.
on my to-do list, actually. I'm currently looking to go support some tribes there.
Yeah, but you did a lot of work supporting the same type of stuff up in New York, and I'm sure with the UN.
Yeah.
You said you were supporting Latin women in
Yes.
Central with the programming you guys were doing.
Yes, exactly.
So-
And
yeah.
I think it's important, since you've mentioned consumerism and also what is happening in the Amazon and these fires. In order to really connect the dots with everything that we've been talking about, sometimes people are aware of this greenwashing term, and for those who are not, essentially this, as you may know, it's companies that promote that they're sustainable, but actually they're not.
Some of the biggest polluters, yeah.
Exactly.
A fancy commercial, really well done,
Exactly.
saying
oh my gosh, don't get me
we're
started.
helping Exxon. I'm not going to throw anyone under I think I just said one name accidentally. No, but
But it's
greenwashing is marketing that isn't really truly with integrity.
Exactly. And people often tell me, sure, we have a responsibility as consumers, but it's this big corporation's fault that our world is polluted. The answer is yes, but also these companies are sustained by our
demand.
Power as consumers.
Sure, comes down to the consumer.
So it really comes down to what are you putting your money into? What are you buying? Who are you buying from? And I do understand that sometimes people, have restrictions, especially during this time with finances, and
it can be more expensive to buy organic sometimes, or
exactly,
or green
but
material.
In those cases, I would say, if you can, to support local farmers, for example, and try to do your best with supporting small businesses, for example. Women-owned, indigenous businesses that actually care about their products and the earth.
Yeah.
Because that actually makes a big difference. Buying things that are biodegradable, making sure that they're biodegradable,
Sure.
and not just using single-use plastic and things like that.
Yeah.
Small changes do make a difference, and sure, it's not about necessarily the consumers. It is the companies that are driving this, the global heating, global warming. But it is up to us to make the right choices. So then, the demands for these polluting factors goes down, and then they're forced to find more regenerative
the public
options.
demands that Pepsi use a container instead of plastic. They really demand it. They have to go pitchfork style. We demand that you stop using plastic, because if you don't demand it, they're just going to keep doing it probably until the government forces them, maybe. But the government, it may or may not force them, because it's up to, again, private industry and the public to really make a change. But it starts with education, and I think the tides are slowly changing, but it's a slow change. Over the last 20 or 30 years, because there's more talk now than ever about environmentalism and about green energy and solar and EVs. I mean, I have my first EV in the last year. The EVs aren't the solution at all, but I haven't had to have an oil change or gas in a year, but I use fossil fuels to power my battery. So I still use fossil fuels, and I fly, so I'm using fossil fuels, and I buy things online. But we've had a really deep conversation about climate justice and about environmentalism. I want to talk a little bit more about the classes you teach locally, because we have a limited amount of time today. I still have some more hard-hitting personal questions, but before we get there, I want to talk about your move to Miami and about how long you've been here. Tell us why you came to Miami, what you love about Miami, and what you offer here in Miami for your classes. Because we're going to put all that in the description, but I want you to tell the folks what you offer and why, also your work that you've done here.
I actually moved to Miami because of my climate justice work. So I know that there is a lot of heated conversations around people moving from New York to Miami, and I completely get that.
Oh, I welcomed everyone.
I know.
But it did
do.
change the city. We got an influx during the
Absolutely.
2020 period of the
and things,
C19,
the rates have gone high for
houses,
everything.
But it wasn't just New York; it was other states too.
Yes, absolutely.
And other cities were affected. It wasn't just Miami. We're not, we have to. Change is part of life.
Yeah.
You either change or you adapt or you don't.
And I want to mention that because, as a former New Yorker, I've definitely gotten those comments, and I totally
From Miami
understand.
people? That you're not like a local?
Yes.
Aye.
Even though I have been
I would say aye.
working to support the local
Right?
communities.
You're working.
So I moved down here because I helped create the first heat resiliency program for Miami-Dade County, which is actually the first in the United States.
Heat resiliency.
Yes, it's called Heat Action Plan.
Okay.
And it's a plan by Miami-Dade County under the office of Mayor Daniela Lavin Cava to prepare the citizens to really adapt to the rising temperatures. So it has a component of education. Each year there is a heat season, a designated heat season that goes from May 1st to October 31st. We created a very extensive communications campaign to make sure that citizens, whether they speak Spanish, Haitian Creole, or English, are informed about the signs of heat-related illnesses.
Heat exhaustion.
Exactly.
I know I'm a high school cross-country coach, and we get certified in heat exhaustion, concussions, and sudden cardiac arrest.
Exactly.
Because those are things. But heat exhaustion is a big deal in Miami.
It really is.
And then there's not as many trees as some cities. Some parts of the city have trees, and some. We were talking about that off the podcast. Is when you told me you worked in resiliency and heat issues. I was like, wow, I bet the trees help a lot. If you have trees in your neighborhood, it provides a huge amount of shade. And then when they cut down trees, sometimes all of a sudden the area will get super hot, more than it was before, right? But is it more than the tree cover? Is it more than the gardens? Is it also what is affecting heat, especially in Miami? Is it just we're closer to the equator than any other city?
That is definitely a factor, but also it really goes down to the heat island effect, which essentially it comes down to practices of what is called redlining, which are urban design practices where in the past communities that were low income and BIPOC communities were placed in areas of the cities where there was and there is still more construction and concrete and less trees. And so those neighborhoods have a higher heat index than the neighborhoods who
than
have
Miami
a
Shores
tree canopy.
Key Biscayne or Coral Gables. We think of these beautiful communities that have tons of trees.
Exactly.
They don't have as much of an issue. They're not in the middle of these, like Brownsville or like Little Haiti and Model City and Miami Gardens. And there's some areas that are Overtown where they placed black populations because it was right under 95. And they didn't want to give them the prime. Now it's actually prime real estate because it's one of the highest areas of the city. So they're trying to force people out, through gentrification.
That's right.
But the areas still don't have many trees. They're just building and building. And the city of Miami is growing very fast. We're one of the largest cities in the U.S., top 10, I'd say. And for Florida, we're a major part of Florida, which is a major tourist destination. We have the cruise lines coming in. We have the international airports.
Right.
We're a hub to Latin America. But it's so much concrete. I'm assuming that's why it gets so hot, is the amount of concrete. Is that pretty much it?
Exactly.
And it's also, we're very close to
essentially what happens is that all of this concrete, this material during the day absorbs the heat, and at night it releases it.
So the city's hotter than the surrounding areas.
Exactly. And
you see that in Chicago too, by the way, and you see it in when I lived up by Chicago.
Yeah. This happens really in
elderly people were more affected.
Cities.
Yeah, the heat was worse, and people without AC were dying.
Exactly. So really the heat action plan that we created and really was a team of just myself and my boss at the time. I'm no longer affiliated with Miami-Dade County as of recently. But the plan that we created included, yes, education, but also action items, which went from making sure that people in affordable housing have access to working AC, that the bus stops are shaded because a lot of people use the bus system.
Sure, and they're standing out there for a long time sometimes.
Exactly. In order to go to work, they're exposed to the sun. They have to walk to, the
sidewalks.
bus. Exactly.
Parks, I'm assuming, having access. There's food deserts we talked about on a couple podcasts where these areas probably experience food deserts because they don't have access to great grocery stores.
Exactly. And so the main target, and statistically the people who suffer most from heat exhaustion in Miami-Dade right now are outdoor workers, from construction workers to agricultural workers. As well as pregnant women, children who play in the heat, athletes who train in the heat, people who also like work in restaurants because they often go back and forth between areas that don't have AC to areas that have AC.
And it gets really hot in those restaurants. I've worked in restaurants, yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
The elderly, of course.
Yeah, because they can't breathe as well sometimes either.
Yes, and overall, just like individuals that don't have access to AC and cooling facilities, the homeless. So I used to work essentially with all of these communities to provide workshops. I often also included somatic activations in my workshops because, when we're talking about this kind of teams, these are not always like easy things to talk about. Sometimes individuals, especially if they're more sensitive, they can kind of feel hopeless when faced with like this big issue of global warming. And so I think that's also where like the somatic healing and mindfulness comes in, because once your nervous system is in a place that it's calm, then you can take action. Then you can take care for yourself or your neighbors. You can check on maybe like your disabled neighbors, like even during like hurricane season, it really is all connected.
It's a properly functioning system. Once you take care of one person, that person can spread that knowledge and spread that power that they have from being whole again.
Exactly.
So take us through an example can you take us through an example now of like a quick somatic activation? It doesn't have to be
can definitely do that.
Okay. Are you ready? Do you want me to turn on the lights a little bit? Or they're a little bright in here. I can turn them down if you want.
I think it's okay. Up to you. Yeah.
Do we close our eyes? How do we do this?
I think
do I sit
I just first want to make sure, like with this, I wanted to conclude with the activation, if that's fine.
Okay.
So
then actually, I have a couple more questions. Okay.
I think that would be a nice way.
Yeah, we have about 5. We said we were going to stop at 2. It's 2:08, so
That's okay.
No, but so how do you give us a couple examples of how Sustainably Lu lives sustainably in Miami?
I love that question.
On a daily basis, like what's part of your daily routine that you've done that has helped you to be more healthy and also somatically whole?
So some of the things that I do a lot, but I will say, first of all, I buy as much as I can from like local businesses. So I make sure that I get my groceries from local farm markets. Okay. Supporting, local farmers. I'm still exploring all of the different farm markets that we have here in Miami and determining, which one I like best, because, like in everything we always need to be cautious, right? Or where we're like.
And you're going to keep finding better spots. Like I know there's a fruit distribution center over by or not by by the hospital. And it's like one day a week, and you can go like where they bring all the fruit from like from like Homestead area where they grow it. But it's like before it gets on the trucks, it goes there, I guess. So there's like little tricks you can learn. You can buy it directly from the farms that way, or you can go out to Homestead, or you can just pick a smaller grocery store that supports local farmers because there are some of those in Miami. But that's awesome.
So that would be one thing.
So you shop green.
Yeah, I shop green if I can. I don't use Amazon.
I know.
And
that's the hardest thing I think for people to avoid once you get hooked on it.
Yeah, because of
There's
the convenience,
certain things,
right?
Yeah.
But often, I research what I see on Amazon, and I go on the company's like website and I order from the company.
I heard that's a trick. Yeah, you can get it directly from the company and still ask them for.
Yeah, and on Amazon you can also see if you don't have like the option, maybe like you need something quick for an emergency, right? Because we're not all perfect. Like I don't believe in like you need to be like perfect in order to make a good impact.
That's important. I think
Yeah, because then
perfection
people
is
get
not
stressed
realistic.
out and they're
It's
like,
not-
I'm not going to do
no
anything.
one's perfect. No
Yeah.
one is perfect. Everyone.
But like on
has
Amazon,
issues.
there is a filter. I think it says like climate
Sustainability,
pledge,
yeah.
and small business.
Yeah,
There's
they
like
add on
two,
like $2 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like not much.
I don't know about that.
It's not a lot. I remember seeing it recently. It depends on like
Yeah, but
the
it
cost of the
filters
purchase.
out like the companies that are like,
Oh,
you
okay.
know,
But there's a
small
pledge button where it'll
businesses.
like add on a little bit. You're pledging. It's like also more green packaging, I think, and green shipping.
Yeah, exactly.
They're doing a better job. The other day I got something that came in paper, so I was like, okay, this is recyclable.
Yeah, they're
You know,
they're trying.
they're trying to use
there's
less
still a lot of
packaging.
room for improvement.
There's still a lot of room.
But you know,
But it takes away from local business, which I understand. We need to all support
Mm-hmm.
local, otherwise we're going to lose it.
yeah, and on an
some more examples.
energetics like standpoint, you know, every morning I make sure to do some of my somatic healing practices so that I can be grounded and move into my day like being like calm and aligned, so that I'm not just like acting out of my instinct. And you know, so this is something that can change every day, but usually my go-tos are like somatic shakes, which essentially you just like shake parts of your body. So
Okay.
even if you have a disability, you can do this because you don't have to necessarily shake the whole body. But this is a very like primal way to calm down your nervous system. Pets do it, dogs do it often. Stretching as well. After about like 45 seconds of like shaking a body part, our brain starts releasing dopamine, serotonin, which are chemicals, as we were saying, that are responsible for well-being, for happiness, for wellness. So that is a fun, quick one. I also say to like the people that come to my classes or like my one-on-one clients who work in corporate offices, if you need a break from work, you can go into your corporate office bathroom and you can do that too from
The
there.
shaking.
Yeah.
I've done it before in yoga classes where they have a shake, and running too. We have everyone shake out and do a lot of body looseners. Body looseners are just little simple movements of like little circles with different parts of your body to loosen it up if you've been sitting in
That's
a chair
right.
or in a car. But
Yeah, just
body
like
awareness.
to move the energy. And I love to do, you know, some like diaphragmatic breathing. So it's a very simple technique that I can walk you through in a little bit.
Sure.
And really, these techniques don't take a lot of time. So that's like the key component, because what I get the most is like, I don't have time, I don't have this. I teach mothers, like single mothers and people who like run several businesses how to do this. So like every single person can do it, even if you just have 3 minutes.
Wow.
It can make
The
like a
busiest
really
person
big
can do this.
difference. And so
I
those
love
are
that.
some of the things that I
Okay.
do. I try to avoid like harsh chemicals as much as I can, because they're also like hormone disruptors, which especially women, people who have like women bodies, like are more affected by those. So it's a whole thing.
Cosmetics too. Like I used to work for a beauty company, and there's some that are earth friendly and some that are like, it goes way beyond even animal testing. It goes into, you know, is it the Environmental Working Group is like the standard. They're out of Washington D.C., the EWG, but they have like the Dirty Dozen for food and the Clean 15. But they also have a rating for every single skincare product in the world, and
That's
cosmetic and fragrance. And if you don't have a clear and transparent label, you should be able to see what every single ingredient, because what you put on your skin is very important. So
it's
just
super
as much as what you
important.
eat.
And it goes out back into the earth too.
Yep.
It's like everything is connected.
It's crazy too. And sometimes like the thing that drives me crazy, my little pet peeve, is the spray sunscreens. Because it's like a lot of it doesn't make contact with your body, so it's called, like, I forget the exact term, drift. Like you lose, like it's drifting and it's sometimes hitting other people in the face. But it's also very bad for it's like that type of spray is very wasteful.
Yeah.
And it releases like, I don't know if it releases CFCs anymore, but it used to. In the 80s and 90s, there were chlorofluorocarbons that would get released from hairspray. That was a big thing back in the 80s and 90s. But still, when you're doing those spray sunscreens, like my friends are using them, just use zinc oxide. That's what I use, and it's a physical mineral block. We're dorking out on skincare now, but it's so much better for the earth, because in Hawaii and Key West, they banned most sunscreens that have, it's called hydroxybenzone or something. Oxybenzone, which is a chemical UV absorber, is what's in like Copper Tone and all these banana boat, and you know, come after me. But, you know, I'm a skincare scientist for 10 years, and zinc oxide is the healthy alternative to using a chemical UV absorber, which is what's in all the sprays and all the other slathering. The ones you get at the tourist places tend to be the chemical UV absorbers. They go into your skin after you apply it, and within 15 minutes, a chemical reaction takes place, and that's what blocks the sun, a chemical reaction in your blood versus a physical mineral barrier that doesn't get absorbed, which is what zinc is. Exactly. Zinc is a rock. They can blend it now. You can put it into, you know, moisturizers and put it into makeup. And they've come a long way. But when it comes to skincare, I mean, I think every single thing we consume, we need to look at the effect it's having on the earth, and like even 7 generations from now. I know it sounds kind of cheesy for me to be saying that as a white guy, but that's how I was raised. And growing up was like, I remember one of my favorite phrases is live simply so that others may simply live, you know, by Mahatma Gandhi, because that just means like we have privilege. Like I could way overconsume if I wanted to, but I don't need 2 or 3 cars. I don't need a motorcycle and a car. I don't need a little scooter. I don't need all these extra things and all these different toys. And like, you know, some people like the toys. Some people need 30 pairs of shoes. They need all the different products. They need the fashion. They need this. I'm very simple, you know, but that's just me. I still make my choices. And some of my choices, I'm a DJ, so I'm buying speakers, you know what I mean? And I'm buying stuff with my DJ. But when it comes to clothing, I don't buy a lot of clothing. And when it comes to, you know, product to make yourself look beautiful, I mean, I get it. Everyone has their own thing. I'm a runner, so I fly to do marathons. But I think living simply is a motto that I live by. So what would you say is a motto you live by, if I had to ask you that question?
I don't buy things that I don't need. And when I do need to make a purchase, I make sure that 99% of the time it's sustainably sourced, it's not tested on animals. That is the rule that I live by. Like really, I really check my consumerism like habits.
Look into the company. They give like a little bit of profits back to, like you see at Whole Foods, a lot of brands do that.
Yeah.
You know, they give X amount of profit back to social groups or the environment or towards donating towards a good cause.
Yeah, and like you will never like catch me anymore like, you know, using makeup or even like nail polish or anything that has been like tested on animals. I don't buy from like, you know, fast fashion. If I do have something that is like fast fashion, it's something that I bought like 10 plus years ago when I didn't know better. Because also that's
this is
the
a
thing.
very nice dress you have on today. Did you buy this
you.
over? Is it from a certain
This is
fashion?
from my mom's closet, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Well, she's got good style.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's also something that I do a lot. And not everyone can do this, but you know, repurposing things, like even if in your own community, in your own family, or going to you know, like secondhand markets
stores,
and stores.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Have you heard of Mids Market? They're right down the street from us here.
No.
They do a bunch of events. Yeah, check them out. I haven't gone yet. MIDS. I learned about them from a woman who was just on the podcast, Taryn Hipwell. She was actually at the event we were at.
Okay.
She was in the audience when you gave your somatic.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Taryn, she's the healthy fashion expert. She was on 2 or 3 episodes ago. She's amazing.
Oh, amazing.
She taught us all about healthy fashion, which is, you know,
It's
the
very
opposite
important.
of fast fashion. So, but she was talking a lot about in like Mids Market and the Things Lab. You know, these are some of the local places that are. Mids Market is literally 2 blocks from here, and they're
That's
a secondhand thrift store, similar to a Goodwill, but in a different style. Like they have.
Yeah.
They have parties there too and stuff. Like they did something
That's
for
good to
Miami
know.
Music Week where they had a bunch of DJs come through.
And it's great to bring awareness to the fashion industry because after the animal agriculture industry, that is like the biggest polluting industry in the world because
Textiles.
of the water that they use, because of all of the garbage, all of the trash.
Packaging,
Exactly.
The waste.
And so that is also like something that I would like to leave the audience with is like, sure, like trying to, you know, limit your impact in what you consume, like things that you buy, but also like we spoke about what we eat, we spoke about the Amazon, the deforestation, and, you know, take it from a 100% Italian. I love food. I support veganism. I'm 100% vegan, and I don't think everyone should be vegan because you can still limit the impact.
Be mindful about it.
Yes, even if you just eat, I think the statistics said like one vegan meal like per day, you can significantly reduce the impact of
your global
greenhouse.
footprint, your ecological footprint is much higher if you're a meat eater.
Yes.
Certain meats in certain farms, like if you're getting it from a regenerative farm, it's probably better than if you're getting it just from a factory farm.
Yes, and I think it's important
fish,
to talk about that, because there is this term like angry vegan. There's a lot of angry vegans who are just very extremist, right? And so I don't support that. I think that like nothing comes from like extremism. And I think it's important to go down to the fact and see that actually there's many reports that show that even if you still eat meat, if you just like replace one meal a day with a vegan one, you can reduce greatly the amount of like,
it's realistic
your
too.
Your food
You can't expect the whole world to change. Right. Just very small changes. That's what Sneaker Impact's about, is many people making that choice to recycle their shoes. Many, like thousands and hundreds of thousands of actions equal a great impact.
That's right.
But they all start with one tiny little action of one person that goes to our website maybe and orders that recycling bag, or takes their shoes to the local running store, you know, or reads the information you're creating for women in underprivileged communities. So we've gone, we're getting close to that part of the podcast where we need to start wrapping up, but I really want people to know about what you do in Miami.
Yeah.
Now, so tell us, don't be shy. Tell us about all the places you offer coaching and classes. I'm looking here at how people can connect with you.
Yeah.
And the first way, it says Somatic Serenity Online Group Coaching.
Yeah, so that's what I was mentioning briefly before. I do have like a collective course community where essentially we break down all of the somatic healing tools that are like the foundations of somatic healing in the span of 5 weeks. But we are in session right now. I am thinking about extending the program.
Okay.
So that is a way to connect with me. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, because the course also stays with you, and each module we break down very simple techniques from meditation to breath work to somatic healing to somatic movement. And in the course, I do talk also a lot about intuitive movement, intuitive fitness, which is something I'm really passionate about. I'm very open on my platform about the struggle that I had like with food growing up. I suffered from an eating disorder for about 10 years growing up. And it wasn't until I learned about intuitive eating, intuitive exercise, and really somatic healing that I realized that actually all of these, inputs from, I call it the shadow side of the fitness industry, and even like the diet culture, it's really based on consumerism. They're not really based on supporting you to get healthier. And so that is another way that people like, if they feel called to this work, that we can connect on, because I really focus on that I'm a very active person and I eat intuitively. I don't restrict food anymore. I don't do any harsh workouts that disrupt my hormones as a woman. I don't believe in one fits all, and movement is medicine. So my approach with fitness and somatic healing is really that it needs to work for you. So that's why I provide people with all of these different tools that then they can make they can make theirs. So whether you're traveling, whether now you're pregnant maybe, or you're a new mom, you have limited time, your body has changed, you can still calm down your nervous system, and you can still use movement as a healing tool, rather trying to control your body. Like, no, you need to.
Everyone has like a slightly different need. Like a college student is going to have a different need than a mom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or than
it's about making it accessible to you.
Person, yeah.
So that is like the group like course that I host.
You also have a one-on-one?
For one-on-one, I help people both online and in person with somatic healing, but I'm also a traditional Reiki practitioner. Reiki is a Japanese healing tool to support.
I didn't know it was Japanese.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was brought into the U.S. from a Japanese Hawaiian woman during World War II.
Can you give us a powerful example of a one-on-one client that you help transform their life? I know you don't want to take responsibility. It's up to the patient and the client to do a lot of the work. But can you tell us an example of someone who really changed their life, whether it was physical or mentally or something, from the practice?
Yeah, a couple of examples come up. I mean, I'm with respecting the privacy of the
Of course, you don't need to give any
clients,
names.
I have one person who stopped having panic attacks after only 2 weeks of working together.
Wow.
And this person was suffering from panic attacks for years since their parents passed.
Wow.
So that would be
I've had panic attacks in my life. They've been very intermittent, but I had some as a youth where they didn't make any sense. I felt like I was dying.
Yeah.
But I have them under control now, but I can identify with panic attacks.
Yes, that is, and I'm sorry you suffer from that. I know it's a very scary episode when they happen, and you do feel like you're going to die.
Yeah.
But it's really all about like essentially talking to your brain and bringing yourself back into like safety. So that is a big example, and also what I was going to talk about, like the one-on-one mentorship and group mentorship too, because there is a part of that in somatic serenity, is that I supported this client, this success story, to actually like make peace with her body as a new mom.
Okay.
So this person was like really having all of these unexplainable physical reactions, like things that the doctors wouldn't know, like they didn't know, they couldn't explain. She had so much stress about how her body looked, and so much stress about the perception of other people, that like the perception that other people had of her body changing, that she was having like skin rashes all over her body, she was like losing hair, a lot of things. And after our program together, like her skin came back to normal, like she's in peace with her body now.
Wow.
And that's by implementing like somatic healing, intuitive fitness, intuitive eating, which really are tools that bring you back to your natural connection to yourself and to the earth, without all of this like cultural pressure to look a certain way, do a certain way, avoid certain things. Obviously, I always say to people, like, listen to your doctors if you have, like, health issues, and, for example, you're diabetic or something. Like, I'm not going to suggest that you go against your prescribed diet, right? But it's about finding balance. And it's more about, like, mindset and the messages that your brain sends to your body and vice versa. So bringing balance without
calming
being at
the
work.
nervous system, too. I think that's something a lot of people can use help with.
Because a lot of people are at war with themselves.
Yeah. Or
really
just could be traffic, it could be lifestyle, it could be pressure from family or just anything. And they don't handle stress well sometimes. I don't handle stress well sometimes when I'm not in a good place mentally.
Well, most people don't. No. We're usually not taught about these tools when we are kids. Now we see some Western schools including mindfulness in their, and even yoga practices, from like kids in elementary school, which is great. It's beautiful.
Well, I have a quick story. I mean, I had a terrible stomach disorder in my 20s. I'm in my mid-40s now, but it was so bad that I was hospitalized. And it was like pre-ulcerish conditions. I was very healthy. I was a soccer player, a forester. I was very fit, right? Didn't look sick, but I had basically a hole in my stomach. And I had to go to the hospital a bunch, like ER visits, like with lidocaine, where they have you drink like a liquid thing that like it numbs your whole digestive tract. It's called like, I forget, but it's got like lidocaine in it, and it's Pepto-Bismol. Anyways, so after a couple of those, like I couldn't even feel my body. I was in so much pain. Like my arms were completely numb. Like everything was all from this. I couldn't even stand, and this was affecting me off and on for a couple of years. And eventually, I was prescribed like Pepsin at the time. It was when I was like, I stopped drinking soda. This was when I was a teenager even. I stopped drinking soda at like 15, but like soda was not good for my stomach, but hot peppers and things also. I basically had a very thin stomach lining, but I went to a healer after that my older brother introduced me to. I met through my older brother. I was exposed to some interesting people through him and in Wisconsin, and the healer taught me how to practice mindfulness over my food, among many other things. I was also meditating on the color red. So that's a quick personal story. But you know what happened? And I was taking these homeostatic soil organisms that occur naturally in organic food. They're in the soil. So they're called HSOs, homeostatic soil organisms. They're like probiotics, but they occur in the soil and they're living, and they're on our organic food. But anything that's been overwashed or peeled or not grown in an organic soil wouldn't have it, because they're living organisms that go like on apple skin, carrot skin. You get what I'm saying? So you can take that as a supplement, and it helps your gut health to improve. So they recommended I take that from a company called Garden of Life, actually, that's in West Palm Beach, but it was called Primal Defense. You had to take it for months, and it rebuilt my stomach. On top of that, I was meditating on my food before I eat it to slow down. So it'd be like a 30-second meditation. I'm grateful for, may this food be for my greatest and highest purpose only. And I'm grateful for all the love that went into it, all the farmers, all the animals, all the love and work. And just slow down and be grateful for the food, period. And what happened was, over the course, and I stopped drinking alcohol. And anything else that was contributing towards toxic system, and I turned my entire stomach health around, and now I've got a bulletproof stomach, so I'm back.
That's amazing.
And that it took some time. It took a year or so, but it was really the mindfulness of the food was what really did it, I think, along with the supplementation of these things that some people don't get if they're eating processed food, like microwavable food. You're not getting homeostatic soil organisms. You're getting that when you work in the garden, you get it naturally, you breathe it in. So that's a quick example of a lifestyle change that when it connects you to the earth, you're getting, when people play in the dirt, the kids, they get homeostatic soil organisms.
Yeah, it's so funny you're saying that, because I saw someone yesterday asking on the internet, when is the last time that you played with dirt? And I had to think about it.
No, it's
and actually
gardening.
It was at historic Virginia Key a couple of years ago.
Oh, I love Virginia Key, yeah.
Yes, I was helping plant some new trees, talking about trees with Tremendous Miami.
Oh, nice.
And so that is my last
cool. Yeah, I've hiked that place,
wow,
and I love
it's been like 2 years now.
Sure,
I need to
so
do
then
more.
you get really down. Yeah, I mean, I love it when I get the soil in my fingertips. It's in this.
Yeah, exactly. And one last thing that I want to mention, because you asked, what do I offer, and also
I want to talk about your online stuff too. Is that?
So the
because we're still not done. I got more questions.
would be online.
Okay.
I do see my clients both online and in person.
So your one-on-one is online and in person?
Yeah,
okay.
That's right. And also about success stories, I do host group classes in Miami. And so I've been working at the Standard for over a year now. And there I host somatic healing workout classes.
Oh, wow.
And Reiki sessions.
At the Standard in Miami Beach?
At the Standard. And I do this monthly. And I also I'm starting to work more with more local studios weekly.
Cool.
So, definitely to people who feel called to this work, connect with me. So
I'm going to come to one of the Standard classes. I know Sneaker Impact's going to get involved. I've been trying to come. I was, I think, out of town for your last one. But I know, is it on the 27th of this month at the Standard?
The 27th of April.
April 27th at the Standard. And it's the most beautiful place, too, the Standard. We got to tell people real quickly that haven't been to it. I mean, it's legendary, but it's a very peaceful place.
Yeah.
And it's on the Venetian Causeway, which is in between the city of Miami and Miami Beach, but it's kind of isolated in the sense it's not where all the activity is in Miami Beach. It's more hidden. It's a hidden gem.
Absolutely.
And it's all about healing there, but it's also a kind of a hangout spot, a social spot too. They have the docks, and they have the pool, and they have a membership, and they have what do they have? They have a spa there, a big time spa. It's one of the best spas in Miami.
With the classes, the spa access is included.
Oh, wow.
So what is great is that after you do these sessions to clear energy stuck in your body, you can do hydrotherapy.
The Roman waterfall, the cold plunge, the heated hammam. They call it the hammams. Is that right?
That's right.
The heated rocks you can lay on inside.
You can, and they have a steam room, a sauna, an ice room for those who don't want to do the cold plunges. And
a Roman waterfall, I love. Right?
Yes, and you can really
it's
get
this
the
waterfall
benefit.
that hits you really strongly on your shoulders. Anyone who's been there knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then you can go swimming with the dolphins in the bay. I've done that.
Yeah.
You can jump off the pier.
A possibility.
There's a little what am I trying to say? There's a restaurant that's on the bay that they have too. They have a really clean restaurant. I've gotten really good vegetable juices there and like ginger shots and stuff. Like
That's good to know.
They have really healthy drinks there if you don't want to drink alcohol, because they definitely have alcohol too, because it's like a
it's a popular spot.
It's a popular spot. Like boats pull up to it. They have fancy members, but everyone there tends to shop and look very sustainable because they're like dressed like in more like, it looks like more environmentally friendly fabrics, and also just like they seem to be from a mindset of more like less waste, of like they care about the bay. You know, it's located on the. I noticed there that the standard cares about, you know, the environment, and they care about social good too.
Yeah, that's why, you know,
they only carry clean
really
products.
Like care about also the energetics of the place where I work at.
Yes.
So I definitely have been feeling aligned with the standard and you know what they stand for, and I know that, you know, they have asked me to support them also with sustainability, so that's something that like we've been working on, and they're really open to having like sustainability workshops. And now
you should do that because you have a big background in that, and they have multiple locations. They're all around. They have a couple.
Yes,
around the world.
Absolutely. And so
you offer a class there once a month about?
Yes, because those are like longer classes. They're called like workshops. They're 90 minutes, and then people can stay until closure.
Okay.
They close at 10 p.m. So the classes start at 7 p.m. and usually so they last 90 minutes, and then you have access to the spa afterwards.
How nice! So you can just like melt into the therapy after your class.
It really helps also with the release of everything that we work on during class, because like you sweat and then you can do the cold. It's really good for like.
I've taken yoga classes there and other classes. Like I used to teach a running course there once upon a time, and it's the standard is honestly probably the most relaxing place in all of Miami, short of a state park. Like it's so natural and yet it's peaceful. They have like this saltwater pool, right? I should be like on there. You know, I'm promoting. But anyways, we love the standard. Who doesn't? I'm not a member, but someday I would love to be.
In the last class,
if you're not a member, you go to Lou's class and you can go and enjoy the facilities.
Yeah, exactly.
It's normally quite expensive to go. It's a members only place. It's a hotel too, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's a hotel and spa and a members only, like kind of like a club.
That's right. That's right. And that's why, you know, that's why I also host the classes like once a month, because, you know, I want to make them like as affordable for my community as possible. So I've seen that like once a month is something that my students feel more comfortable with. And also they can take the advantage of like what members, you know, who pay like.
Yeah, and if they want more support, then they're going to come to you for your group, online group, and you also have free online classes. It looks like a complimentary 30-minute somatic healing session. Is that on YouTube, or where do you provide that?
Yeah, so that's on YouTube. In the description of the podcast, perhaps we can put a little link so people can have an experience from wherever they are. It's a short class, about like 30 minutes. It's called Get Out of the Funk.
Okay,
so,
I'll watch it.
It's something that you can do really if you have like even limited space or time, and it's an introduction to what a somatic healing class would be. Obviously, if we end up like working one-on-one, I create approaches based on what the person is experiencing. But yes, usually when it's like group classes, I like to work with like what the collective is experiencing. And the beautiful thing about somatic healing is that there are in my training, I got trained by Sade Simon. He's a Brazilian spiritual guide. He put together all of these ancient practices into what is called the somatic activated healing method, which is one of the things that I practice. And there are specific movements that are connected to specific emotions. So I support essentially by the community when it's a group class by creating these classes that are based on like, okay, what are we experiencing as a collective? Is it grief? You know, is it anger? Is it rage? And like actually like clearing those emotions so that we can amplify the vibration of ourselves and also of the earth.
Yeah, that's true. Certain, like what you're saying, certain actions can, like if someone holds their arms like this, you know, like body language, like it can like hold emotion, you know, versus like I'm sure how you hold your body is very important. And you know, if you clench your jaw, that's not good. You know, relax the jaw, relax the shoulders. You know, it's a lot of things that relaxing tension, I'm sure, is important. But okay, so I have just a couple more questions. I mean, we're pretty much wrapping up. I don't want people to think we're leaving yet because we got the the best part at the end, we're going to do an activation. But so people can find you on Instagram at sustainably_Lu, L-U.
Yes. That's correct.
We'll put that, and you're on TikTok, it looks like.
So
And- you have a
Instagram
website.
is my main social media, I will say.
Okay.
TikTok, I don't. It's not like something that I'm like very versed in. But I
Okay.
do have a TikTok handle.
Yeah.
It's the same one as
I'm not
Instagram.
on TikTok, unfortunately, but I am on Instagram, so we're friends
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yes.
So
yes.
definitely send Lu a friendship. She's teaching. I watch her live. She's going live. She's sharing a lot to help heal people and the planet. And you have a website too?
Yes, I have a website where people can just browse all of the information of all of the offerings that I teach.
What is the website?
And the website is selfsustainableindustries.com.
Selfsustainableindustries.com. Okay, yeah, we'll put that in the chat. Or in the, and you have a newsletter?
I do have a newsletter. Yeah,
Cool.
I really don't like spamming, so I make sure that in these newsletters, I offer people like simple tips on how to regulate their nervous system, and I just like let people know like the
Through
classes classes
They
that
sign up for it, so they want to receive more information. That's awesome.
exactly.
So you can stay in touch with them and give them tips. That's so nice.
Yeah, because then we have people who travel and maybe like they stop their wellness routine.
You're providing value too. I mean, some people who see it as spam are the people that are not interested in really the benefits or the help that they might be stuck.
My goal is really to make these healing practices as accessible as possible.
I love that. Yeah. If you travel a lot, this is something you can do. If you're a mom, this is something you can do. If you're
Exactly. I do a lot of that on my Instagram too. I have like small practices or even like segments of my classes there. So yeah, I'm really big on making it accessible.
Well, we've really enjoyed getting to know you today. What's your favorite food as an Italian? I think we talked about it.
My favorite food?
Yeah.
I know it's pretty stereotypical, but Italian pizza.
Italian pizza.
Yeah.
So Napolese, or how do they say it?
Yeah, a Napolitan pizza.
Is there anywhere in Miami that can do that? I know that I've been to a couple places like...
I'm not sponsored by them, but I love them. It's a chain because they have different ones. It's called Pumarola.
Okay.
And there's one in Miami Beach, one in Midtown.
So you say theirs is authentic.
It definitely is authentic.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty.
Have you ever been to Omunciello? They're an Italian only pizza
No,
place.
I don't think so.
It's on Biscayne. They pride themselves. They use like even charcoal in the crust. But it's very interesting. Yeah, check it out.
Okay.
It's like O''Munciello. I'll give them a shout out because I went there a couple times.
Okay.
And they do not. And like one time I went there and I asked for a Greek salad and they go, "We're Italian only. Everything's Italian." They got the aperitifs. They got the after you eat you get the lemon shot or something. It's like
the limoncello.
Yes, the limoncello and
Got
just
it.
everything there. The pizzas are so authentic. Like everything is from Italy. So it's
And
on Biscayne. Yeah. It's not far from here. It's on 70th.
That's good to know.
Very
I'll
close to
definitely
here.
check it out.
Omunciello, yeah. There's a
Because I
bunch of
love
places.
pizza.
Yeah.
Like
What else about the Italian culture is like brings you back to the home?
here in Miami?
Or just in general? Like, are you...
What I will say.
Yes. We want to learn more about the Italian culture.
What I will say, so first of all, to close the thing on the pizza, for my vegans out there, Pumarola is 100% Italian, but they also have vegan mozzarella, which is good.
Okay.
Because not all vegan cheese is like tasty. But yeah, I want to give them a shout out because they really like make it a point to like make it accessible and tasty for everyone. So I really appreciate them for that. And going back to like Italian culture, I will say that recently I've been truly diving into my mother's lineage, which I was saying is like from the Naples region. So Campania, just south of Rome. And that's also where pizza is from. And it's on the coast. So usually people go to the Amalfi Coast. It's a very like popular spot. And I have been reconnecting to my ancestors there. I still have family there. And I am so fascinated by the fact that I've been learning that, there used to be like tribes led by women actually who we're working like the waters, working with, you know, like sustainable regenerative practices to make sure that, because it's those towns are like big fishing towns.
Okay.
And they used to really have, and they still do some of them, but they used to stress a lot like sustainability. So to not like overfish, for example, they used to be, and some of them still do a great job at not polluting the water excessively, because unfortunately there's always a little bit of pollution, especially with tourism, etc. All of this to say that I am planning to, this is probably the first time that I make this announcement live, I think, but I'm planning to host sustainable retreats in Italy.
Oh, wow.
In order to support the local communities. But also I know that there are a lot of people who feel the connections with their ancestors in Italy, or even with the land, because it's a very, healing land, actually. And so, yeah, that's something in the works.
Amazing. Wow. That sounds very immersive, to like
Yeah.
take a group to Italy and show them behind the scenes and from a local's perspective, like this history, it's so rich in the culture and the connection to the land. That's really cool. I think you should do it.
Yeah, I have plans to go this summer to scout places, because there's a lot of very ancient and healing sites on that land specifically. And I want to first experience it myself and make sure that, you know, I make the right connections with the right like local business owners and all of that.
And then you can bring a group.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, we'll want to learn more about that. And, guys, we're going to share all the information in the bio and in the description. But it's been fun getting to know you today, Lu.
Same here.
Ludovica, yeah. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, do you want to end it all with any type of activation, or how
Absolutely.
do you feel? Okay.
We're going to do a very short one.
Okay.
So that
should we lower the lights, or the lights are really bright in here? I keep feeling like we should lower the lights.
It's up to you. However you like it. Okay, let's do it.
A little bit.
And just so people know, this is something that you can do whether you are standing or sitting.
Okay, so whether you're standing or sitting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna sit, but just because I want to practice it sitting down.
We're gonna be here just for about like 5 minutes or so.
Okay.
Okay. And this is really something that people can do whether they have meditated before, whether they're beginners, experts. Okay. So we're going to start simply, whether you're sitting or standing, by, first of all, relaxing our shoulders, relaxing the belly. And we're going to start focusing on all of the touching points between our body and the surface underneath us. So making a mindful connection with your body and the support from underneath the earth. So if you're standing, you may want to bring awareness on whether or not you're putting more of your weight on the right side or on the left side. You can bring a gentle bend in the knees and adjust yourself, bringing yourself back into balance. You can do this also if you're like sitting, making sure you're comfortable. Really getting curious about how the body feels supported by the earth underneath you. So focusing on that sensation of gravity, that sensation of support. And if by any chance you're struggling to make the connection, you may want to like wiggle the toes as if you were grabbing with your toes the earth underneath you. Maybe you address the earth. You can send some gratitude for supporting you at any point, no matter what she's going through. See if you can relax a little more into that sensation of support. You can close your eyes or you can keep them open. Especially if you're standing or on the go, please be aware of your surroundings. You can do this also with your eyes open. Just keep a gentle gaze here. This is a simple exercise to ground yourself in the present moment. Feel the body and the support from underneath you. Maybe relaxing the jaw. Very gently, we're going to scan from the bottom of the feet all the way up. We're going to scan our body. And we're going to reach just about 2 inches above the head. And here we're not scanning for problems, but we're simply becoming aware of how the body feels today. So making sure to scan all of the body, not only the points that may have some tension, but providing love and attention to all of your body. Remember to breathe, breathing normally. And once you reach the top of the head at your time, we're going to bring one hand to the chest and one to the belly. And if you only have one hand available, you can decide to place it whether it's you feel more called to the belly or the chest. It's up to you. We're going to be focusing on how the hands feel on our body. So perhaps you can feel your heartbeat underneath the palm on your chest. Or maybe you can feel your breath moving your belly in and out. Connecting with your life forces here. Staying with that physical sensation, that sensation of touch, of connecting with your vessel, with your body. And very gently, we're going to, with our hands here, move the focus on the breath without controlling it. Just noticing how it is. Maybe it's shallow, maybe it's deep. And very gently, we're going to invite more oxygen into our body. And we're gonna start by first exhaling all the air out. Breathing out from the mouth as if you are blowing into a straw, pushing the belly in, exhaling, exhaling, exhaling all the air out. At the bottom of the breath, we're going to inhale from the nose, extending the belly for a count of 4, of 3, 2, and 1, holding at the top just for 1 and for 2. And exhaling all the air out from the mouth for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the bottom here just for 1 and for 2. And inhale from the nose, big belly breath, extending the belly. Inhaling from the nose 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the top for 1 and 2. Exhale from the mouth. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the bottom just for 1 and for 2. Big inhale, the biggest you've taken today. Expand, expand, expand. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the top for 1, 2. Exhale all the air out. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold just for 1, 2. And letting the breath come back to its natural rhythm, keeping your hands there. Noticing how the breath feels now. Noticing if maybe there is a little change. And if not, there's no problem at all. We're just noticing without any expectation. gently bringing the attention back to how the hands feel on the body, on that physical sensation. And very gently, we're going to scan down from where our hands are, all the way down through our feet. We're going to see in our eyes, mind, some beautiful roots that connect us all the way down to the core of the earth. So just as if it's an extension of your body, scanning all the way down. These roots can be any color, any shape. Feeling into that sensation of support, of steadiness, connecting you to the very core of the earth. Perhaps you fix your posture a little bit, feeling into that strength of the earth. Continuing to breathe here. Feeling your interconnection with the earth. Feeling rooted and grounded, supported. Once you reach the core of the earth, just scanning back up, all the way down, all the way up, through your roots, through your feet. Once you reach the feet, you may wiggle the toes, just bringing some movement and presence into the room. Very gently at your own time. You can open up the eyes if they've been closed. You might have a little stretch. Grab some water.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And
It felt so peaceful. Really quiets down everything, doesn't it?
Just honestly, like connecting your, like bringing awareness to your soma, to your body, and to how the physical feels on the earth. That is one of the most simple somatic healing tools to ground yourself in the present moment.
Just thinking about the sensation of your body connecting with the earth.
That's right.
So important. We hold ourselves in sometimes stressful positions throughout the day.
Yeah. So
whether
it's
we're
all
slouching or
about,
whether we're in a car. Even me at the chair, I'm kind of like leaning a little bit to the side, trying to stay out of the camera view. And I noticed that, yeah, it's hard on the neck, it's hard on the shoulders, it's hard to sit for long periods of time too for me. I like to move around. I'm a very active person like you. And yeah, so I think it's important that we just honor our bodies and that we think about these things. We're bringing awareness to and being mindful. And that's like a very important word, I think, for like the world is mindfulness, you know, and I think that's exactly what you're teaching.
Yeah.
I teach it in running, but it's so important in everything we do. Mindful eating, intuitive eating, you know, mindfulness in everything we do. We interact with the world in shopping, in fashion, and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
purchasing,
absolutely.
being a consumer, being a mindful consumer. Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much, Lu. It's been a pleasure. What a healing podcast. Thank you for sharing your energy and your love for the planet and for people with us today on Sneaker Impact News. And hope to see you again in the future. And we'll definitely guys check out Sustainably_Lu on Instagram. And I'll be sharing the link to all of her resources and classes. And we're going to be teaming up with her, Sneaker Impact, in the next couple of months to do something with her classes to raise awareness about recycling efforts in Miami. And yeah, we'll be looking forward to seeing what you're up to, and hopefully more and more programming for, like you were doing with the UN and with all these other agencies, to help continue to heal the earth and heal people's bodies.
Thank
Awesome.
you so
Thanks,
much
Lu.
for having me.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Any last inspiring message you want to leave us with? I always ask.
Honestly, I would just say kindness goes a long way. So be kind to yourself and to others, because I know this sounds like cliche, but you don't know what others are going through. So trying to practice like kindness with yourself first, which will make you feel more inclined to also offer kindness to others.
It doesn't cost anything either. That's
That's
a
right.
cliche thing they say about it. It's free 99. Free
That's
dot
right.
99.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, kindness, I agree, is something the world needs more of and is very healing.
Yeah.
Because we don't expect anything necessarily. It's a selfless thing to be kind. You're not doing it just for something you're receiving. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do. And it helps heal people instead of approaching with anger or with stress, or with, regrets.
And I would say if you feel like triggered at all by anything that someone is saying or by something, just first ask yourself, how come do I feel triggered by this? Like, what does that action or that person like reflects in me? Because we're all mirrors of each other. So just try to be more mindful about that before reacting to something. Just truly like sitting with yourself and think,
why is it bothering me? What does it say about? I feel that way too sometimes. I have to look deeper at why something might. Comparison is the thief of joy. We cannot compare ourselves to anyone.
That's
just
right.
Be healthy and happy and kind. I love it. Thank you so much, Lu, for being on today. That was a great healing way to close the podcast out. All right, guys, check out Sustainably Lu, and we'll see you on the next Sneaker Impact News. Bye.
Thank you so much.